So my friend Brian Krassenstein, and by the way, I know some of you are saying, what are you friends with Brian Krassenstein? Yeah, I happen to personally like Brian and Ed and disagree with them on just about everything. And I did disagree, but more substantively on something Brian posted today. He asked the question, since Donald Trump has truthed sometimes, Donald, please come back to X. We love you here. But anyway, he's truthed out a call for Joe Biden to just drop the federal cases that the Justice Department has against Donald Trump. The J6 case that's going on right now, I think two of them actually, and the documents case. He's calling for him to drop them. And Brian is saying, well, if he can do this, and if he were successful at it, wouldn't this throw chaos into the justice system? Because everyone would ask for it. Well, on the surface, that seems like an important question. But I want to explain why that's not quite the case at all. It won't lead to that. See, first of all, this is the most unique set of cases in the history of the United States that have been tried for any purpose or any reason. Since the Department of Justice was created, and by the way, we've not had a Department of Justice for our entire history, but ever since that department was created, it's an inherently political position. There's not a time that it's existed where it wasn't political in some form or fashion. And in fact, the most consistent discussion is the independence of the Department of Justice. Folks, that's really never happened, or at least not to any degree that is useful to say there's no political influence on it. It's never happened. There's an inherent political component, and even more importantly, the Attorney General who runs the Department of Justice is appointed by the president and confirmed by the Senate. Now, the appointment by the president is political. He or she is appointing someone whom they believe is politically aligned with them, as well as, in this particular case, being a very real lawyer with some qualifications to undertake the legal activities. But if you know the nature of the Attorney General's office itself, there is little to zero adjudication and court action that ever happens with the Attorney General, him or herself, period. It just doesn't happen. They are an administrative person, and clearly their legal background is helpful to monitor what's going on, but that qualification is combined with the political affinity between the president and the appointee. And that it cannot be disregarded ever for two reasons. One, that means that the president can influence that person in any shape, form, or fashion the president deems good, bad, ethical, unethical. It doesn't matter. The president can do that. But secondly, the person in that office is already largely on board. And certainly there have been some instances of disagreement that happen. Absolutely. But in reality, you can't even say that Bill Barr, who's come out very negatively with Donald Trump, wasn't also somewhat on Donald Trump's side from a political perspective. So that always happens. The conjunction is inseparable between the political and the qualifications of the person. It'll never go away. It may be moderated to some degree, but it is always there. Now, the nominee having those political goals is definitely, to some extent, however small, influenced by the president. It's never the case that that's not what happens. And the person may resist it, but the pressure's always there. But in this case, Merrick Garland is so much on board with Joe Biden. He was appointed as a way to fix a problem that Republicans caused by not allowing him to get on the Supreme Court, and thank goodness he never did. Joe Biden and Merrick Garland talk, period. You just can't hide that. Merrick Garland also serves at the pleasure of the president, once he's confirmed by the Senate. So the president can fire the Attorney General at any time. Is it politically feasible to do so? Well, maybe, maybe not, but it has been done. So there's always that political aspect of it as well. So at any time, the president can call the attorney general in, who serves at his pleasure or her pleasure, and give them a discussion about what they want. That's just the fact. Now, let's talk about the issue, though, of prosecutorial discretion. Because of the political nature of these cases, because Donald Trump is Joe Biden's opponent in 2024, and for any of you saying that Trump's not going to win the primary, you're wrong. And by the way, the only reason he would is because of what Merrick Garland is doing. The state cases, by the way, would not preclude him from becoming president. No one would look at those and say that would take him down. The federal cases might, the documents case and the J6 case, or at least one might have thought so. But the reality is that is why prosecutorial discretion should have been exercised here. Merrick Garland can exercise prosecutorial discretion. It happens all the time. Most people don't know this, but the vast majority of crimes that happen in this country are never adjudicated under any circumstances, either because the person is not found out after an investigation, or because the crime itself was not serious enough and the dockets are so heavy, or the person is not considered a real risk because of those dockets, and just on the merits of it, they are not prosecuted. That happens quite often. So prosecutorial discretion is there. And in this case, prosecutorial discretion is even bigger, because it's impossible to break apart the intent, the perceived intent of the prosecutions to take down a political opponent. That's impossible to do. This is why you have not seen a prosecution of a president of any substance in American history, because and it's why you saw a political pardon of Richard Nixon in particular by Gerald Ford. Gerald Ford pardoned Richard Nixon because he knew that the country at that time could not undertake a criminal prosecution of a former president. And I want to make this clear as well. Gerald Ford was right, because we're going through that right now. So, in conclusion, by Brian Krassenstein's definition, would Donald Trump having his cases dropped lead to a wide swath of other people wanting to get their cases dropped? It might encourage some to do it, but there would be nothing compelling, and it would not cause a run on the bank, so to speak, because this is a political prosecution. There's no way to avoid that. It's absolutely political, and it needs to be corrected. They need to drop this and let the country move on and decide who they want to become president.